Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Phil, how you doing up there in the Great White North?
I am doing good. It's warmer now. The weather's better. The lights are on. It looks like we got company.
We do. I do. I'm super excited today for this podcast. By the way, so if you follow along and listen to us, sometimes, well, I'm always excited and animated, but I'm like super riled up today. And I'm super excited that we have my good buddy Bert Manning on here with us. He is I'm going to call him a fellow Overlander van lifer, traveling full-time on the road. And we are currently camped down here together with a couple other friends in Southern Baja. And I met Bert, I don't know how many years ago, a bunch of years ago funny enough, at an Overland van life event in Bisbee, Arizona. And we've traveled various different states and whatnot in the past. So he is a Air Force guy, right? A former Air Force guy in the military. Thank you for the service.
You're welcome.
And even more interesting, I'll let him talk about that, but he flew Warthogs, right? A-10s?
Yes, in the beginning of my career.
So, and he, subsequent to that, tell me if I'm wrong, but you worked for the government or consulted with the government. So he's got some secrets that we can spill out here on the podcast.
I hope I don't spill any. That would be good.
But so welcome, Bert, to our dysfunctional family here on the Random Waypoints podcast.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure being here. Like I said, I've been listening to you guys for about a year now. I'm on the YouTube and enjoyed all your ramblings that's been going on. And I've actually learned a lot. So as a van lifer, integrating the van life with the Overland communities, it's been fun. Even though I can't go in the back distances that, Mike can, my Ford Transit 250, can't get too far back there, but I do my best I can.
And I'll do a shout out to, I guess, to myself and to Bert. I filmed a rig walk around video of the van that he is currently living in. I don't know how many years ago was that? 3 years ago, maybe?
It was about 3 years ago up in Wyoming.
Yeah. So if you want to check out my YouTube page, you can find a little walk around of his van.
So let's back up just a little bit for our audio listeners. Just briefly let them know where you guys are, what's going on, the setup.
Where are we, Bert?
We are in the beautiful city of Todos Santos in an RV park that I don't think we're ever going to leave from. So I think possible. I came here for about 2 days and I haven't left, and it's been about 3 weeks here. So it's about a mile from the beach, and it's about a 10-minute walk from downtown Todos Santos. So we have all the bars, restaurants, and a lot of places to get in trouble. So it's a good time.
Awesome. All right, Mike.
And I wanted to say, Bert is an aspiring YouTuber. We could talk about that, Bert. Give us some insight on how that's gone so far.
I wouldn't know it's aspiring. I pretty much do it for myself and to make sure my mom knows I'm alive. I think I got more critics than I do actually subscribers, and they're pretty passionate how bad I suck at it. So, but I can't imagine. I just released probably a 5-minute video of me just running today. Oh, I can't imagine how many hateful comments I get out of that. Probably I run wrong. I breathe wrong when I run. Why are you doing this? So it's
you told me good. You told me this story about you got, what's the thing called, a Flowbee?
I got my Flowbee. So I got tired of paying for haircuts. So me and my buddy, we went to Amazon and bought one of those vacuum hair Flowbee things. It is literally one of the best things I've ever bought in my life. I wish I would have bought it 30. George Clooney's right. It's perfect. I thought I had trouble doing the sides here and all that stuff. It is worth every single dollar I've ever spent. It's the best 50th birthday present I've given myself.
That's a good gift idea. We did gifts last week, Phil. There's a good gift idea.
Absolutely.
Not for me, but but you put that video up on YouTube and you got all sorts of criticism, right?
Well, not on that one. That one I tried to make that one funny, and I guess it flopped for me trying to be funny. So I think it's got 50 views now. So I don't think a lot of people are in the Floby market for van life. But I try. That's all I can do. I try.
Well,
I love the thing. I get laughed at because I have a Floby and I'm 50 years old and I use it, but that's how it goes.
Well, I have learned being on YouTube for a while that the people in the comments are experts. Yeah. They know everything and they have an opinion that is counter to yours 100% of the time.
Well,
absolutely. It's 100% of the time that like people are cyber warriors. I call them. Like they just, if there's something negative that they can come up with, I'll even get some comments sometimes that'll go on for, 5 paragraphs about how this is great. I love this. I like that. I like that. I like that. But
right.
This is terrible.
Right. And the 3 paragraphs that they wrote before it was a setup for that.
Yes. Exactly. Oh my God.
I have to thank Mike though. I was pretty down for a while listening to all my comments, but then when I heard that Drive the Globe actually gets bad comments, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better about myself. I guess everybody gets them.
I used to do a segment on my Instagram stories called Foolish Fridays. I stopped doing that a while ago, but what I used to do was take a negative comment that I had received during the week, and whether it was on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or wherever, and I used to post it, and I posted it on my Instagram with their name and everything, and what they wrote, and then what I responded, and I called it Foolish Fridays because people, it was brutal. Some of the stuff people would say about me, and I just whatever, you gotta kind of have to just laugh it off and have thick skin because you put yourself out there. So
my strategy has been to, when someone sends me a negative comment, I act naive and oblivious to what they're saying, and I'll just comment back nicely, and they generally reply back nicely the second time around.
That's outstanding advice, actually. Thank you. I'm starting doing that.
Because sometimes people do not understand, and this is the power. This is why I like to say words are powerful, right? And people don't understand. Sometimes they write. And not everybody is as good of an author as other people. And sometimes they're writing, their intention in their mind is not as negative as it comes out sounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the truth. And they say it and you read it and you go, holy crap, this person just ripped me a new asshole. But then you realize, well, maybe that's not because I'll respond sometimes and I'm pretty punchy. So I sometimes respond fairly hard and then they come back and go, oh, no. I didn't mean it. I didn't really. It's OK. I mean, I like all your stuff. And, you get the total different reaction. So
and times have changed about etiquette, too. I think we're all in the same ballpark of age. We grew up in a time where you were taught from a young age to always reread and to let someone else take a gander at what you wrote before you put it out. That is not the etiquette any longer.
No, you're right. Totally right, Phil.
And they're the most, they're sophisticated when it comes to technology, but for some reason they can't find spell check.
Oh, let me tell you, as a current student in Spanish down here, and I'm going on now 7 weeks. I think I've been in this Spanish course. Spelling and pronunciation are extremely important because one letter different might have a whole different meaning. And we have found out the hard way that may be the case. But you realize it more when you're struggling with a language that you're not that good at. And I hate to say it, I guess as Americans, there's a lot of people in America that aren't that good at English either. Right. So
where would you say? Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just saying, unlike my usual, I was going to show them here. If you're watching on video, you could see I got a piece of paper here with a list of some topics, which is rare for Mike. Very rare for me. Phil usually is the organized guy here. But before we get to that, I want to ask, I think let's get to know Bert a little bit. I think people are going to be super interested. Tell us, one day you told me a couple years ago what it was like to fly those planes back in the day. What you had a couple funny memories.
It's tough to talk. I'm not used to talking about myself, so it's a
talk about the plane.
So, I think it's a great airplane. I was introduced to it as a young second lieutenant, and all the planes I flew, from pilot training all up to that, it was a good time. It's not really that difficult to fly. It's really not the flying's difficult. It's flying within the package of the formation. I'm not trying to screw, like any football team. You don't want to be the one that screws up, and that's pretty much everyone's major fear when it comes to any type of Army, Navy, Air Force. You want to protect the guys next to you, and not to be the one that messes up on the ground. But like I said, it was a joy, and I'll always look back on my career and doing it. Unfortunately, it didn't last forever. I switched over to engineering, and Air Force decided you're going to go build satellites. The one story I have about satellites was, I remember I had a girlfriend at the time and said, "Yeah, I'm going off to go build satellites," and she said, "Well, the first thing you got to learn is how to spell satellite." And two T's in satellite. I'm like, I got a long ways to go here. So, but like everything, the Air Force teaches you leadership. And when I got to, one thing I do love about the Air Force is they'll take someone young and they'll say, "Hey, here's a heckload of money, and just go and do it. Do the best you can. Here's a team. Lead them through the process of developing whatever kind of satellite they were looking at that time, and you learn from trial and error. It's not like they baby step it. Here it is. You're the rookie quarterback. Go and sling it." So, and I had to learn the hard way. Same with flying. There's plenty of opportunities when I was flying out there at Red Flag, and my boss was basically saying, "You might be the worst pilot I've ever met in my life," But also,
did you ever go to Mexico?
Yeah, that's okay. So. There was one flight in pilot training. Well, pilot training is in place in Del Rio, Texas, and it's right there on the border. I think Laughlin's about 4 or 5 miles. No, it's more than that, from the border of Texas. And you're not supposed to fly to Mexico. If you fly to Mexico, you get a fail. You get fail. So one day I was out there flying a solo, and I was right on the edge of the box. And as a brand new pilot, your situational awareness where you are in the space is kind of lacking, like any brand new pilot. Well, I kind of accidentally flew into Mexico a little bit, and I was like, there's no way they saw this. So when I was coming back into the land at Laughlin, they pretty much said, "Well, whatever it was, Bachelor 201, you're clear to land on runway 24. Make sure you check into customs on your way, on landing." And right when they said that, you're like, "Oh crap!" I knew they went right to the board and went fail. So,
fail.
Oh my God. Bert, I like you. You are self-deprecating and very humble. Because I worked on the commercial side of satellites, MCI, probably at the same time you were working on satellites.
Nice.
And I know about air pilots. And you are being very self-deprecating. It takes a lot to just qualify to be in the group to become one of these guys. You have to be physically a top-notch person physically. So you're being very self-deprecating here. That's all I want to say.
So okay. Well, thank you very much. It's my nature. So, but the Air Force, I get one of the things I love about it. It introduced me to traveling, seeing the world, and it's the one that kicked off this wanderlust, travel wanderlust, that I have within me. And once I started traveling, I just didn't want to stop. So I knew that I had 2 goals in my life going forward, was to retire early, which I did at the age of 47. So I'm happy I did that. And one of them was just see the world. I haven't been as many countries. I think I've been to 102 or 3. And so I haven't been as many as Mike has, but it's been a heck of a journey. So.
And you were in the military. You were stationed where? How many different places?
My luggage was stationed places. So, but the big ones, I say my luggage basically was stationed in the States and Korea for a little bit, but, throughout, the war zones, Germany and a few other places I can't remember. I can't get into a lot of details.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the nature of how it goes in this world. So, yeah. But the key places I was at, it might've been to some other places I can't really mention.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Places we might even talk about on the podcast and unrelated things. You never know.
Yeah. South Korea is one of them. Yeah.
South Korea. Yeah. There you go. South Korea. South Korea just declared martial law last night or yesterday. Well, the president, I guess, declared it. And, it goes back to what we talk about. Phil and I always talk about here on the podcast a lot. because we try to be travel focused. And one of the challenges that I have come up against as a world traveler, and I think Bert, you've probably seen this as well, is that as you age, places that I may have gone to before or wanted to go to become less desirable to go to because I guess you're not young, dumb and stupid anymore, and you don't want to take the challenges and the risks as much. You're more risk adverse. Well, what's your feeling, Bert? Being on the, I mean, here we are in super safe Baja, but
yeah, I think of my times like backpacking through Africa. Africa is an amazing place, but you can get stuck in a bus station for 3 days
easily
because wrong bus, or you got the wrong bus station because there are 1,000 of them. And back then I just throw a backpack on the ground, put my head down and be okay with it. Now I'm like, I don't know. I got robbed a few times in Buenos Aires, twice actually. And after that I was like, getting guns pointed at you for, 50 pesos is not my. So yeah, I absolutely agree. The older I've got, like I want more relaxation, overland venture than being out there.
And we were even talking about this right around where we're positioned right now in Todos Santos. What I like about this area, particularly in Baja, is that it's a good mix of, there's a lot of local flavor still. There's a lot of Mexicans. It has not been overrun. It's not a quote tourist destination or big hotel destination like say Los Cabos or Cancun or something like that. But there's enough influence from America and Canada and the outside that there's more money brought into here. So that benefits both of us. It benefits us as travelers, but it also benefits the locals because they tend to be at a slightly better economic level than they would in some of the the lower end barrios of some of the some of like Central America as an example. But so my desire to stay in a place, as much as we joke, I think I've joked with you, Phil, if you name a country that sounds like a bad word, I've been to most of them. But my desire to, like Syria, I've been there, and Libya and Somalia and Sudan and Algeria. I could go on and on to keep listing places that are iffy. Nicaragua, people think of bad things. Colombia. It's not as desirable at this point. Even right now, you've got, not to delve into anything that's on my little list here, but we've got an interesting thing going on. Phil and I promise you, we're going to give you a post-election update / goings on since the whole, our big election stuff on politics. But, you've got a lot of politics going on right now, a lot of politics, and particularly concerning travel and international travel and trade. So here we are sitting in Mexico, and Claudia Sheinbaum, which is the new woman president of Mexico, is a badass. And Donald Trump has announced that he's willing to put a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, and already, okay. So we're talking weeks after the election. You've got the Prime Minister of Canada flying to Florida to meet with Trump. You've had Claudia here from Mexico on the phone with Trump multiple times. You've got the president of France, I believe, just invited Trump to come over to do the grand opening of the Cathedral Notre Dame. This is in 2 weeks. This is more than Biden has done since he was born. And I mean, right?
I would go further. You had Vladimir Putin came out saying that he's up to some type of negotiation, and you had Chairman Xi of China basically said we don't want any badness with America. We love the American people. Yeah, I don't think he said that for a few years.
No.
And Mike, you mentioned about the phone call between the Mexican president and Trump, but what you didn't mention is during their conversation, it was announced that Mexico stopped 2 huge caravans of immigrants crossing the border, and she announced that to him as it was happening live on the phone call. So they obviously timed it for the phone call. So she wanted to have like a gift, a peace offering or something like that for him.
The point is that the fear factor of Donald Trump is effective. It's effective because, this isn't even a judgment of Donald Trump. This is just simply a judgment of somebody that can be effective because they have an opinion and are willing to say it and put it out there and push the envelope. Because you've got right now Biden. Is even the president of the United States right now? I don't know what he's doing. And I mean, let's just be. He's never pushed anybody's button. Nobody's been interested in listening to a damn thing that he said. Right?
Completely agree.
I don't know how he's had this long of a career.
Well, I don't know. That's a great question. So we're looking at that kind of, we like to bring it back, or I try to bring our conversations politically back to travel, but this is a huge deal right now because the safety and security of travel is largely what limits my and others' ability to do stuff, right? So one of the problems, I'll give you an example of this right now. I say we, my friends, Brenda and Kevin as well, we're considering, or we're supposed to be going to the mainland this spring or in a couple months from now. And even they, who were very adamant about doing this, have backed off of that because the United States captured the one of the head honchos from the Sinaloa cartel, and from an American's viewpoint, that's just news. We got a cartel guy, great. Maybe there'll be less drugs coming into the United States. Whoopie ding dong. That's the thought process that happens on Fox News and CNN. But down here, we have come to learn that it is completely destabilized a large part of the western coast of mainland Mexico. And there's places that are no-goes now that I've had friends travel through there 3-6 months ago. And the reality is that what happened is it effectively weakened that cartel to a point at which there's been splinter groups that have separated and are fighting each other. So as soon as you have a situation where one interest is not in complete control, you have it destabilizes the region. So that's the problem. And some of this tariff talk that Trump's talking about now has two implications. I don't think they really intend to put a tariff on Mexico. What they intend to do is push the government into trying to shut down their southern border and limit the amount of people that can come across. And the bigger thing about it is economics. They're trying to get Mexico to not buy and limit Chinese imports. That's what this is about. Because as we know, Donald Trump and I share at least that in common of the displeasure of China. And, what happens is a lot of our automobile production is now being done in Mexico. So Mexico's number one percentage, their biggest percentage of their GDP comes from automobile industry now. And most of it's American. And Mexico is our biggest trade partner. So we don't want them buying components from China and bringing them into Mexico and then building our cars essentially out of Chinesium. So that's what some of this tariff stuff's about. But for us travelers, is it going to stabilize or destabilize the air? Obviously, if there's less people transiting migrants through Mexico, it makes it safer, right, for travelers. Although it probably will destabilize the countries that they're coming from. So you got to look at that too. That's where part of the problem is. They're coming out of, well, in many cases, Eastern Europe, around the Ukraine conflict, Turkey, Iraq, Iran. Some of them are coming from Guatemala, Honduras, where there's problems going on, or South America, like Venezuela. So a lot of this is all interconnected. And that's what I'll leave you on. I won't try to paint this into, we're just bitching about stuff. I'm trying to tie it back to overlanding and nomad life. But I mean, in reality, there's a lot more to it.
To tie it back to overland life down here, and we were always asked, what's it like to travel down to Baja? I really want to go down to Baja. It sounds all good, but for the last probably 6 months, the two questions the one question I got, is it safe? I think for a period of time, most Americans coming down here, they really weren't worried about, once you get past Tijuana, whether it's safe. But there's been two incidents. It's the cartel, and then the three surfers who were killed, somewhere around Ensenada, maybe about 9 months ago. That's really spooked a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's sad to say because it's a great place, but I think about 50% of the people who wanted to come down here just don't come down here at all now. Because
agreed.
It's going to take a few years for that to go away.
Agreed.
And the other one I think about tariffs was China actually was talking to Mexico about building a Chinese manufacturing hub zone. So, and I think that's maybe about 2 years ago, that kind of spooked, our government, even though to build a hub zone is probably a 20-year effort to do that. So, but just throwing it out there on the table is, fuel to the tariffs going forward.
And that's, by the way, that's China's methodology around the world, is they've gone into countries like Angola, and they've tried to go with Nicaragua to do that. There's a bunch of countries where China tries to go in, basically build things for them, and then have them owe them money. I mean, that's kind of the plan, right?
And they bring their own workers. They actually don't hire the population.
Yep, that's right. So, Phil?
Hmm? I'm listening to you guys. You guys are over the border, so I'm trying to listen to you. You across the border.
You're north of the border, so you're hearing on the ground. I mean, what are people thinking about what's going on?
So let me go over the things that you talked about so far. Like you were talking about how politics is integral to international travel, and I just wanted to mention that I think moving forward, Americans will feel far more comfortable traveling. I've been traveling almost all my life, and the way criminals react to an American citizen and their passport varies from president to president. I think that a criminal felt far more comfortable doing something to someone in the past 4 years than they felt the prior 4 years, and how they will feel the next 4 years. Just like you were mentioning how the politicians from different countries are changing their tune because they know Trump is coming. I foresee that happening in criminal organizations, international criminal organizations specifically. They know that somebody's coming to get them if they do something to us. They didn't feel that way with Biden. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Are you surprised at the speed that this seems to be occurring?
No, I'm not. You haven't been listening to me for the past year. No.
I've been listening, Phil. No, Mr. 100% predictor here.
I thought Trump was going to smash records. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought he was going to become president by the afternoon. And when you actually look at the numbers, he did. They just were reluctant to announce it because of the liberal media.
It's interesting to see the postmortem of that whole election, because you realize that everything that we talked about, let's say, 8 months to a year ago, was all true. Harris was one of the most unpopular vice presidents and or politicians in the history of the United States, even in her own party. And somehow, magically, the Democrats lost their shit, forgot about it, had amnesia. I don't know what happened, and put her in there. And, based on what we knew prior, there was zero chance that she had of winning. Zero. Right?
Well, she reminds me of something my father taught me a long time ago. He was like, if you open up a steakhouse, you got to have lobster on the menu. And that simply means, if you go to a steakhouse and there's not choices, you don't feel like it's right, and you don't go back again. And it's the same thing. People have not felt like they've had a choice with Kamala Harris since when she was running for president, and she lost miserably in the primaries. She didn't even get one vote.
But like I said, they had amnesia. They forgot about that.
Well, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I think the media gives the perception that people thought about it, didn't think about it. But I think nobody forgot about, hey, wasn't she the first one out in the debates? Hey, didn't they just give her the vice presidency because they said it had to be a woman, and then there was pressure she had to be a woman of color?
Okay, but don't rain on my parade. Look, I've got some liberal friends that a year ago would tell me, yeah, she's not a good candidate. Those same friends, flash forward to this election, were posting things on Facebook saying, can't wait for the new woman president of the United States. What in the actual fuck? Right?
I just think she is the epitome of a DEI. If someone who is trying to make DEI sound like a bad idea, you use her as the example.
I think it was simple as that. The fact that the American public, they knew she wasn't qualified.
Right.
So they weren't going to take the BS story. Well, Americans they love a BS story at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, they want the truth. And they know that lady, she probably hasn't run a Jack in a Box in her entire life. So they saw right through it.
And the point is that, it's not a woman thing, because, this is a call out to the Democratic Party right now. Just listen to me for a second. I know you don't want to, but you picked two women that are basically terrible candidates. You picked, Hillary Clinton, who is one of the most polarizing human beings on planet Earth. And then you picked Kamala Harris, who appears to be like I've said on the prior podcast, the village idiot. But in contrast, but it's not a woman thing, because in contrast, here we have Claudia Sheinbaum down here in Mexico. She's a badass. She's already gone up against Donald Trump. She's not afraid to talk to him. She's not afraid to get involved in dialogue. Minutes of him being elected, she was on the news down here talking about what this means, how we're going to work with him. Can you ever picture Kamala Harris doing that, talking to a foreign leader? I can't even picture that. But she can't talk to her own staff.
There's a differentiation in between Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. I don't like Hillary Clinton, but her resume is far exceeds Kamala.
Yes.
I mean, it's unfair to even compare those two.
Well,
I don't like Hillary, but she would have been no punk in a meeting with other leaders.
Agreed. But you have to get somebody that is not polarized. So Claudia down here can do it in she's not hated. Look, she got elected by a very strong majority. So she's not Hillary just, it doesn't matter whether she was female or male. She just rubs people the wrong way.
That's what I'm saying.
She doesn't have the charisma that Bill Clinton has.
But Kamala didn't have the charisma, and she wasn't qualified. That's what I'm saying.
She's a trifecta.
I can't believe I'm defending Hillary Clinton. But I respect her a whole lot more than Kamala Harris.
Absolutely.
Mean, if you really analyze what Kamala Harris has done in her career, and you say, pick out the thing that really stands out, she was sleeping with the guy to get it.
Yep.
So her biggest accomplishment, you can't even give credit for. And I think people don't understand how prosecutors get to be prosecutors and become the head prosecutor. You are generally on a ticket, and nobody knows your name. So if I'm voting Democrat, I just go Democrat down, and I don't know who Kamala Harris is. You just get in as a judge or as a prosecutor or whatever.
Yeah, because you're on the bottom of the ticket.
Yeah, so even the things that she's said to have been voted in for, she really kind of still got shooed in. Who know? I bet most people don't know who is the prosecutor for their county. They don't know who that person is.
No, I would say not.
So she has really not done anything at any point.
Okay, here's a question for Bert and for you.
Uh-oh.
This is a two-part question. Do you think that Joe Biden had a legacy as being a president? And two, what is it after he pardoned Hunter Biden?
I look at it the same way. Let's pretend politics is football. The presidency is reaching the Hall of Fame. You got your yellow jacket. And you're OJ and you kill your wife. That's if you become president, you're in the Hall of Fame of politics. I mean, that there's only been less than 50 people who have made that achievement, right?
True. Yep.
But then you OJ'd yourself with the pardoning of your son. Does that make sense to y'all?
Yep. Bert?
I can't beat that analogy. That is an A+ analogy across the board. From my perspective, he didn't do anything. 4 years, he fumbled the ball every single time from Afghanistan to X, Y, and Z. So I don't really see him actually having a legacy. And what you might not like Obama, but he had a legacy of healthcare and so on and so forth. I can't pick one thing that Biden did except keep the tariffs that Trump had previously that he said he didn't like. So now he's gone from a zero to just like, you're just a typical politician and you're talking two sides out of your mouth saying, I'm not going to, pardon my son. But when it comes to do it, he does it. I understand the Democrats are saying, it's the heartstrings. He's a father. He's in love. But it's not really my complaint against him doing it. It's all the people around him that are defending him for 6 months saying, no, he's not going to do it. X, Y, and Z. That shows a lack of credibility and they should be pissed.
Well, a lot of them are
manly acts, and it would have been a manly act for him to pardon his son and be like, "Hey, it is what it is."
Well, that's the point.
That.
See, here's the problem.
Because I would have pardoned my son.
Exactly. I'm not faulting him for pardoning his son. The problem is the reason that he gave.
Yes.
Because he said, they were unfairly. He basically did exactly what they were criticizing Trump about for all these years about, dissing their own people and dissing the Department of Justice and the FBI and everybody else. And that's what he gave as a reason. He was unfairly targeted by his own administration because he was the one that was in power.
Mike, this is triggering me because
oh, good.
I have been in debates with people that's for about a decade now that swear they know everything that's going on. And now that everything that they say and believe is being revealed to have been wrong and incorrect, nobody's given me an apology. Nobody's called me, sent me an email, nothing to be like, hey, Phil, you were right. Trump didn't say that, or Trump did say that, or No.
There's never been a correction. I mean, I'm still waiting for my pandemic apology.
And bro, you got to understand, I get all the people hitting me the same way they hit you, and then I get a whole nother angle coming at me because I'm black. I'm just supposed to vote for her.
Oops.
I almost said.
Hey, we don't edit this podcast.
Oh, I caught myself. It was insulting on so many levels that people are saying, you're not seeing what you're seeing. And you're obligated to pretend like you're seeing what you're seeing because you got a good tan. So
yeah.
So I'm more pissed than y'all are. Nobody told you were obligated to deal with her.
Yeah, I understand. Bert, what did you say, Bert?
The question I would like to ask you now is, now this has happened, what do you think the precedent is going forward in presidential pardons?
Well, the problem is now the precedent is it's a free-for-all. So, conceivably Trump could try to pardon himself. Yep. He could pardon, what's been in the news for the last 6 months.
He ain't got to pardon himself.
But I understand. But well, yes and no. Who knows what he's going to try to do? But for the last 6 months, the discussion has been, are they going to pardon the people that were involved in the January 6th Capitol event? And I think the answer to that now is sure. I suppose
Absolutely.
they're going to pardon everybody, right?
Yep. That's what I
And
They
who are we
can't
going to blame
say
that on? I
nothing.
mean, I blame that on Biden.
They can't say nothing.
And they can't say anything. So it's an interesting scenario. Now I know if I've got some of the I'm going to call it the liberal side here on the other line listening to us, they're going to say, well, Trump, pardoned his father-in-law, and Trump pardoned I don't know, a couple of whatever, different circumstances. I wouldn't give that the apples to apples comparison. I mean, the bottom line is on the Hunter. Well. And he never said he wasn't going to. I mean, that's the big difference.
Yes, exactly.
Biden said a million times, his administration said that quackamoo that is the press secretary for him. God damn, do I hate her. She's just terrible. Like, does anybody like that woman?
No.
She's terrible. Her own parents can't stand her. She's just I don't know what bothers me about her so much. I don't know what it is, but she just, I don't know. She's like the liar in chief.
They're all liars.
Understand?
I don't like any politician.
But some press secretaries have been over the years. I mean, look, they all got to say what their boss is doing and, talk the talk. But some of them have done it in a more adventurous, comical, even sarcastic way. She just does it in a mean, ugly way.
Yeah, I don't care about that because at the end of the day, they still all lie at that mic.
They're all lying. Yep. I don't know how we got talking about the press secretary at this point, but what can we talk about that's... See how my blood pressure's going up here again. It's going up.
I think in the next 2 weeks, you're going to find some Democrat initiative to control presidential pardons, going forward. I think that's what's going to, you're going to hear that.
I agree with you. I think there'll be a bunch of them and they'll all have like their names, the Bernie Sanders. Yeah. I agree with all of that, but I don't think it'll ever pass. What I have learned in my many years on this earth is politicians never vote against themselves. They ain't never go. They're not going to vote against a raise. They're not going to vote against immunity. They're not going to vote against anything because they're always thinking to themselves, I've got a shot at this. I want free reign. I don't want... Just like the immunity thing. They made a big deal about the immunity thing. They ain't going to change that because every president wants to be president and have immunity. They're not going to do anything against themselves. And you can't show me one time that they have voted against themselves.
Yeah.
Not one time.
For all practical purposes, the political community is one party, right?
Yeah.
So they're all going to protect each other, regardless of whether it's a two parties. I mean, first and foremost, they're going to keep it a two-party system.
So Mike, let me put you in real touch, okay? I lived in Northern Virginia. I've been to Crystal City and actually done deals with people in politics and in the military. I've had jobs where I literally worked with a lobbyist because he didn't know how to talk the technical terminology in these meetings he was in. That was all my job was to do. So I've literally seen how they are. And guess what? They go to swingers parties together. They go to regular parties together. If you ever go to the White House, it may have changed now, but there used to be a hotel directly across the little grass that's in between the White House.
Yep.
Well, now it's they've cut it all off.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a hotel that's directly across, and it used to be at 5 o'clock. You could see practically everybody in politics in the bars and in this hotel. And they were Democrats, liberals, and whatever, and they're all friends. Matter of fact, if you dig enough, some of them, it's a liberal married to a conservative.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I had the same experience too when I was, consulting for the government out there at, Crystal City and the, Pentagon City and all them stuff. At the end of the day, I kind of looked at myself because they're all the same. They're literally all the same. What scared me the most was, I mean, I was, working on billion-dollar satellite deals, and we really didn't interact with the congressman. It's all their aides, and their aides were like 20 years old. I'm like, what does this person know who's going to take back a good recommendation from here to the? That's what scared me the most. It was either old or young. There's no in between.
Yeah, you hit on something. That's another thing I learned. Most politicians do not have a grasp of any of the things that they're governing.
Well, no, because they rely on, well, first of all, it's our bureaucratic government with all its red tape. Like every time they need to make a decision on something, they're given about 10 hours to read, 72,000 pages of some kind of bill that's been written up, which nobody can do. So then they're relying on, a bunch of assistants that probably also just partied too much the night before and didn't read it either. Right. I mean,
well, you just exposed them even more, Mike, because how often have you clicked on C-SPAN and they're filibustering about something? Why don't they filibuster for the simple? I've never heard anybody filibuster and be like, we haven't read this shit.
No, nobody cares. Nobody. They admit it. I mean, most of them will tell you they didn't read it.
That's crazy. There are numerous politicians over the course of history who have gotten on a mic and said, well, I didn't have a chance to read this. And they're talking about their vote.
Well, it's like John Tester from Montana who lost the Senate race there. He had an ad running, and then there was a counter ad by the Tim Sheehy on the other side that John Tester had voted for a bunch of funding for, quote, illegal immigrants and taking the money away from Montana residents. And he was arguing, I never did that, blah, 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 blah. Well, come to find out, it was buried in another bill. And he, that was voting on something else. So technically he did vote for it. I'm quite sure that he wasn't in support of it either, but it was part of some buried in some other, 1,000 pages of bullshit.
And Bert, that goes back to what I was saying about how they don't vote against their interests. When have you ever heard about a bill being put in and it was just a bill about what it said it's about? There's always other stuff. And I always hear politicians when they're running saying, when I get in, we're going to change that.
Oh, we're going to get rid of earmarks.
Yeah,
right.
Barrel.
Bull.
Because they know that that's their money. They're not.
Exactly. Exactly.
I want a bridge to nowhere in my state.
Every year in my job, I basically had to go through the National Defense Authorization Act. And when you get through that 3,000 pages, the amount of pork barrel projects within it range from swimming pools to X, Y, and Z. So hopefully Elon in his new cabinet position of government efficiency can put it into that. But he's up to a big challenge.
I mean, if he can make efficiency, let's put it this way, if he's as good at efficiency as he is at making Starlink and launching rockets that land back on the launch pad, we might be in a good situation. If he runs the efficiency department like Twitter, we could be fucked.
So what are y'all predictions? What's going to happen?
I predict that he loses his brain in 3 months and he's out of there. Because even like John McCain said,
that makes sense to me.
Getting the DOD to be efficient is like kicking a 4 million pound sponge.
I think that he's going to, whatever he does is going to look great in the short term. And then we're going to find out later that a lot of things he did really harmed us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an impossible role because they're going to literally be making most of the decisions kind of from the outside. So, it'd be like the three of us sitting in a room and going, we could probably get rid of these 75 people and this, and from the outside, it sounds like a good idea. And then you find out later on and you're like, oh, how come my lights aren't on right now? And then you find out like, well, I guess we actually let go of the people that makes a decision on putting power into the building, or you know what I mean? And we just didn't realize it. So I think it's difficult for an outsider to make changes in what Bert just described as the 1,000-pound sponge. I don't know. You have to motivate people. It's like trying to get somebody to quit smoking cigarettes. Like I can't get somebody to quit smoking cigarettes. That the people that smoking have to want to quit, and it's the same thing. It's the people, the bureaucrats in power and in these organizations have to want to affect change. And I think what you said, Phil, is by and large, most of them are mostly just interested in keeping their job.
Yeah, it's a career. It's the benevolency goes away after your first year running for alderman or something like that, and you realize you got to negotiate to get that playground.
Yep. Yeah. So you got to give up something that you didn't like.
Anybody who's 4+ years into politics, they own the bullshit. And Mike, I ain't gonna share this out here, but I've made you aware. I really know some politicians very well.
I know. We're not going to talk about that.
Not at all. So I'm not just talking. I'm telling you what I know. They all full of it. If you you can't, if it's a room full of gangsters and you come in talking about civil things, we're gonna get rid of you. You can't join the team and you're not with the team.
Yep.
And so that's where me and most people diverge in this political argument, because like I heard you guys say, well, I hope this and I don't hope jack, because I know they're going to do what's best for them. I think one was better than the other, but I think they all are horrible.
Yep.
It is a horrible personality and mentality to desire to run for politics. In my opinion, the mindset of the person to run is a fucked up individual, in my opinion.
But you just, to me, in your last 2-minute speech here, you just told me why Donald Trump won. That's why he won, is because the belief is that he's not a politician and that his group of people that he's assembled together tend to be, some of them are politicians for sure, but the percentage at which they've been politicians or the length of time that they have is a lot less than, say, when Biden came in, and named his cabinet, named everybody else. It's like almost 100% of them are career politicians. Trump's nominated some people that, quite frankly, some of them have been very questionable. Some of them, I like to see what happens. It's like stirring the pot, but it seems like a good idea. I don't know. But that's why he won, because the perception is I think a lot of people like us are like, why can't we just change the system? He ran on change. Let's be honest. The reason he won is because people didn't want the last 4 years.
I think it's the same thing I feel in government, procurement, is everyone wants to blame the system. But at the heart of it is the accountability of the government officials and the government employees that set metrics to achieve them. I think he's kind of saying the same thing. We're going to hold you accountable, whatever organization you're in, to actually achieve something. And, and the second point is, people gravitate towards strong men. As much as you might not like Trump, but he's a strong man. And that's what the world's always gravitated towards. And Biden was just a very weak president.
I agree with everything y'all said.
Amen to that.
People are this particular time Trump is in. It reminds me of the first 4 years when Barack was coming in. I think people's expectations of the person and what they think of the person are way higher than they should be. People are expecting the world to change, and it may be incrementally. There may be some social things that we have issues with that might change. We might get a law or two or something like that, but the basic things are not going to change.
Yeah. Sadly, I think you're right, but I think there's more excitement right now. I think that was a great summary. It's very similar to when Obama got elected. I think people are like, there's going to be change. There's going to be a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of shit happening really fast right now. And I think the expectation level is way, way, way higher than what is ever going to be possible to achieve. I agree with you there, Phil. It's like, but we'll see. I mean, it's better than status quo. Like, I mean, let's turn this around. Let's say she got elected.
I just can't agree with everything y'all say, or we wouldn't have no podcast.
Let me bring up something. I got two things here on my list that I'm going to bring up. And one, I don't think either one of you have watched, but I want to. So I know we always talk about stuff we do. So I want to give a shout out to a new TV show that I've been watching. I'm going to tie this into something that you do understand. There's a show called the LANDMAN. For those of you that are big Yellowstone fans, or it's a Taylor Sheridan show. And Taylor Sheridan is like probably one of the most prolific television writers of our time. I mean, he has got so many shows out, and I've watched many of them, and they're excellent. His writing is amazing. How he puts out so much stuff so fast, I have no idea, because he writes and directs the current series that I'm watching right now called LANDMAN. He's directing and a writer for, which is a lot, because usually he produced, like Yellowstone, most of them he just produced it and whatnot. He conceived the idea. But anyways, it stars Billy Bob Thornton, Ali Larter, and even Demi Moore is in it. And it is basically the synopsis of it. It's an interesting show because it's in the oil fields of Texas. And there's definitely a contrast. Anybody that's interested in like grit and how stuff actually gets done behind the scenes, because he plays a fixer kind of. So Billy Bob Thornton is kind of like the guy that works with the oil business, with the landowners, with the Mexican cartel, with like, the environmentalists that are trying to put him down. So it's kind of that kind of theme on it thing. But it's interesting because I noticed after I had started watching the show, I'm going to read you a little part here. Something went viral from that show on social media. And because Billy Bob Thornton has a scene, which I think it's in maybe episode 3 of the first season. And he says, this is what he says. I'll read it to you. He goes, this is talking about windmills, so alternative energy. And on the podcast here, we talk a lot about alternative energy. And I want to mention, I'm going to tie this into Jaguar. So you guys have been familiar. Jaguar, the car company, just changed their branding and are going all electric. And Phil and I beat the shit out of this all electric craze. But anyways, so Billy Bob Thornton says this. He's talking about a windmill. He says, you have any idea how much diesel we had to burn to mix that much concrete to make the footings of this thing? He says, or make the steel, or haul this shit out here and put it together with a 450-foot crane. You want to go guess how much oil it takes to lubricate that fucking windmill or winterize it? In its 20-year lifespan, it won't offset the carbon footprint of making it. And don't even get me started on solar panels and lithium in your Tesla batteries. And you know what the kicker is? We're going to run out of it before we find its replacement. That's the thing that's going to kill us all. It's not the carbon emissions. It's running out before we find an alternative. And believe me, if Exxon thought them fucking windmills were the future, they'd be putting them all over the goddamn place. Getting oil is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. We don't do it because we like it. We do it because we've run out of other options. And and by the way, in the scene, he's talking to... This is
in the movie? I mean, this is in the show?
This is in the show.
Oh, wow.
And he's talking to the young attorney that comes on the scene to solve, as you would expect in any kind of industry like this. One of the pipelines blew up and killed 3 people. And anyways, they send this young, attractive attorney out of New York City, and she's out there going, what about all these windmills and what about alternative energy? And that's his answer to that. The only reason they got windmills is because they got no fucking power out in the middle of there to run the well pumps. And that's what he says. So, what it brings me back into is what I wanted to talk about is Jaguar just put out Jaguar, the car manufacturer. And I had a Jaguar, I don't know, maybe, 15 years ago. And I didn't know this. I don't know if you guys knew this. They closed down the company about a month ago for a year and a half. They stopped production of all Jaguar cars. And they're relaunching the company as an all-electric division. Now, Jaguar is part of Land Rover Jaguar. It's owned by Tata out of India. and they came out with a new logo. I don't know if anybody has seen this logo. If you got it on your screen, I mean,
but I can pull it up.
Google the new Jaguar logo. It looks like it's either one of two things. It's either a new brand of perfume or it's the sign that goes over a gay club in Miami. For real. But what makes it even more interesting if you look at the preview. So they put a little teaser video out like a couple weeks ago, a preview of the new Jaguar, and it had these. I don't know. I don't even know if we're allowed to say it on this podcast. I mean, just watch it, and it had all these people dressed up like it.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. They were. They were dressed up like they were in an 80s Eurythmic video, on MTV or something. It was awful. In any case, and then today or yesterday they launched what the new quote electric Jaguar car looks like, and of course they made it pink. So I'm not sure. Bert and I talked about this.
Wow.
Who are they trying to market this to? That's my question. Wow. That car doesn't look cheap. If they're trying to market to the young millennials, I don't think they can afford an EV that's $150,000 because Jaguars have never been cheap.
Exactly. And Jaguars, let's be honest, were mostly sold to older gentlemen that go to country clubs. Right? And
from my knowledge, Jaguars, they broke down every about 500 miles.
Well, that's true also.
Could be wrong.
No, I own one. And a lot of Land Rovers, and I can tell you, yes, they break down a lot.
I think it's a failed idea for them to go all electric. I think that the commercial had a bunch of effeminate men.
You see the commercial?
Oh, I read everything you're talking about.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't know was the logo, and I still can't see it. I can't find a different logo.
But the logo is like a capital J and then a little A and like a big G and a U. Like, okay, somebody that went to school for graphic design, I could tell you, I mean, those people would be fired. I don't know who the hell drew this logo up. It's terrible. It's terrible. Just bottom line, terrible. It has no context to. No idea what it's referring to, whether it's an automobile, a nightclub, jewelry. It could be anything. It's quite frankly, it's ugly and a bad design. But the reason why I read that alternative energy thing from the LANDMAN show and how it ties into this is, the future isn't electric.
I think
what his point was just talking about, when we run out of gas and oil, we don't have an alternative right now.
But I think we're not going to run out of gas and oil. They've said that for 30 years. And the key to that is, it's the technology that catches up. Eventually after 10 years, we develop new technology that allows us to go after shale, after fracking, and so on and so forth. So now, I mean, easy oil is probably hard to get, but there's oil, I don't know, 50 miles into the surface. We just have to develop that technology. So we're not running out of it any time. The key is just becoming efficiency. Even the satellite world, the key is, I mean, you have these complex satellites, but the most generic thing in a satellite is the battery. It's still 1900 technology. How do you make a battery that's more efficient, more power, less weight, and easier to charge? So, and it boils down to, technology. As it catches up, we jump and energy becomes more available.
And that's the problem right now with the battery thing is that, we were talking the other night here in camp, really the most efficient, best energy that we could be focused on right now is nuclear. And America, as you know, has a phobia of this. If you go to France, as an example, their country is largely powered by nuclear. We still power most of our country really by coal and natural gas more than anything is most of the power plants. So, and I guess one of the reasons I like that show is that, here's somebody with a picture, it's giving you the raw grit of it. But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of environmentalist people are, they're not seeing the forest through the trees. And there's this big push, Jaguar being an example of you're taking a premium luxury brand that's been around for more than 100 years and turning it into what I would consider to be it's going to be a failed business altogether. I just don't think an electric car company in the long run is going to be sustainable, because I don't think that that's the technology where the world is going to end up going. The problem is what happens is that it discriminates against the people at the low economic levels. They can't. Nobody in that group of people can afford an electric car. It costs too much. And then
it's the middle class too that cannot afford.
And that's true.
Electric cars.
By and large, it's upper middle class to luxury class that can afford them. And then the other problem is like, you talk about waste. You've got the battery waste. They're basically throwaway cars. It's kind of like what we've got used to now. Our cell phones, our watches, everything's sort of throwaway right at this point. It works for a couple years and then becomes outdated. We chuck it. And that's kind of the way these electric cars are being designed. They're not replaceable. The batteries aren't really replaceable. So when the car expires, when the batteries are up, they throw them out. So now we have the waste of the battery. You've got strip mining to make the lithium. You've got worker problems in the countries that are mostly producing the lithium that are, it's like slave labor. So if I'm an environmentalist, I'm not looking at that picture. What I'm looking at is that I'm saving greenhouse emissions from natural gas and fuel, which is really a short-sighted view of this whole thing, right? I mean, and like Billy Bob Thornton was saying, you realize that this fucking windmill here that's generating this power that you think is, quote, free and harmless because it's just spinning in the wind. I mean, this thing was built by oil. True.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no logic and reason in idealism or whatever they call it, and how their approach is. So,
well, I can tell you exactly how they approach it. It has nothing to do with what's logical. I'm in the gas business. I'm in the electric business. I want my business to prosper. I send lobbyists to promote my particular business. And we are going to have people research and come up with polls and different things that are going to support that my business is the best. And I'm going to have proof and scientific proof that mine is the best. And the other side is going to do the exact same thing. And it has nothing to do with who's the best. I literally was discussing earlier about, I've worked with a lobbyist. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It's push my agenda forward, period.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Who sells the best story?
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day.
The thing with the electric thing is
perfectly.
That, yeah, I agree. And the thing with the electric thing is that the business model doesn't work. It's worked for Tesla to most extents. It's worked for, say, a Rivian, that Chinese company. I forget the name. It starts with a B. So they control most of the electric vehicle market. GM and Ford and Toyota and Volkswagen. They've all kind of tried. None of them have succeeded because they're mass production automobile manufacturers. They can't make that work, and they can't get the car cheap enough or build it cheap enough to actually mass produce these things. So
I think their failure part is they can't get the car to break fast enough because they make only their profits on parts. So if they make a car that lasts 10 years, they're 10 years out of profit. So they can't wait for their cars to break.
Yep.
I have a question for you guys. Have you heard about they're trying to push a law or regulation or something moving forward saying that you will not be able to purchase an electric vehicle, that they will all be leases, and that at the end of leases they have to be returned? Have you heard of that? And it's because of the environment.
It's a good question for Bert. We didn't mention at the top of the podcast, but Bert's from California, so he's sorry for throwing you under the bus there, but he's got some great ideas about California.
I don't know. I love my state. It's got great surf. It's got great looking women. So if I had to pay, I paid a premium for it, but I understand the rest of the world. Like I said, California wants to be the Homeowners Association of America. That's their dream. If you agree or not, that's their goal. So
I'm still in that.
But the reality is, even with the first electric vehicle that came out, I'm forgetting, like the EV1, that was a leased vehicle. They made everyone turn that thing in. I mean, 5 years later.
Yeah.
So, and I think going forward, most companies, they want that subscription-based application, regardless if it's the web or cars or paying for the lights to turn on your car, whatever it is. Like I think BMW did that or something similar.
Yeah.
Seats. That's where they want to, push people towards. So they're obligated to pay every month. So I can see the tactic going. Now, hopefully America doesn't stand up for that. California will love it. Absolutely love it. Because they got to figure out some way to, all these EVs that they love so much aren't producing revenue for the streets, and they're not paying those taxes. Like, the 68
with the fuel tax.
The fuel tax. I think California is adding another 38 cents to the tax here in January.
And this is, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I don't know how California is going to react, because I think that pushes the gases to over $6.50 to $7 a gallon.
That's insane.
But back to your question is, when is the breaking point of Californians?
Yeah, what is the breaking point of Californians? How come? I'm asking a California here. How does Gavin Newsom get elected? Like, how do they support this guy?
I have no idea. Chat GPT has no idea. I can't really. The one thing that Californians will bitch about is gloomy weather. So I mean, if this produces a lot of gloomy weather, they'll kick the politicians out. I don't know, but I don't know.
Bert, I have a guess, and you tell me whether you think I'm right. California has a lot of upper middle class and up people. California has a lot of educated people. And the more money people are and the more educated they are, they become, they want to be a philanthropist. They want to be a good doer. They want to see the world be better. And I think you have a lot of people in California that fit that bill, but they don't want to put in the work to make things better. They want to gesture to doing well. And that leads to a lot of the craziness that happens into California. They're not well thought out ideas. It's just a bunch of people who are not in touch with those things that want to be a good doer.
I agree with what you're saying. What I've seen with, especially, growing up there is take the homeless population. Everyone wants to say we want to support the homeless, but the minute it goes into their backyard, it's protests all the way. Newport Beach does not want homeless anywhere remotely near them, or Venice Beach, so they kick the can somewhere else, and it's just like the revolving place. Even with the home, and here's a good example. I told Mike, and I'm sorry if I'm getting the numbers wrong, but Los Angeles County just built like a 5-story, $740 million homeless shelter to house 74 people. It has all the nice fixtures and it's beautiful and all that stuff. But for $700+ million, a bunch of modular sheds would do 1,000 times more. But I think a lot of these nonprofits pat themselves on the back because they got paid a lot of money to put up this homeless shelter. They say they do something else and they go off and spend the money somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's the game. If I come up with a solution, I can't build no more buildings.
Yeah, true. What always got me is when Orange County was historically Republican. And that's in between Los Angeles and San Diego. And so is San Diego. And Orange County's kind of flipped. So it's right there on the edge of 50-50. I think the Democrats won it this time. So how did they flip Orange County, and how do you bring Orange County back? Because I think Orange County comes back to Republican, you'll see a shift in overall, or a state of California, or a start of a shift.
Interesting. Because look at Newsom. I use him as an example because he's a wealthy guy. He's kind of like he has the politician look. He's got the CEO look. He's a good looking guy. He's smooth talker. He's like I could see him selling, working at a car dealership.
No. How?
No, but I could see Newsom selling Bentleys at a Bentley dealership.
Yes.
I can see it. And I think my other point for California is I think the government itself is so dysfunctional, but the actual Californian businesses and, that infrastructure on the civilian side does so well, it just overshadows the government. So they can be incompetent.
They're bigger than I don't know how many percentage of the countries in the world. The GDP from California is ginormous.
I think it's number 6 or 7th.
Yeah.
Bert, comment on what I'm about to say, you being from California, because I'm from the outside looking in. From my talking to people, actual homeless people who work with homeless people and stuff like that, there's a huge percentage of those people in California throughout the state that are homeless voluntarily.
Absolutely.
And not only voluntarily, they moved there for the climate so that
San Diego. I used to live in downtown San Diego, basically on the DMZ between downtown and the homeless population. And every single afternoon about 4:30, a homeless guy would get in an argument with the palm tree. So I'm not joking either.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would hang out this bar there called Dirty Dells, and you would actually have homeless come in there to use the restroom. They were very articulate. They'd come in and, very articulate, very polite, and very talk to you going, okay, but I think in the reality, they did the math, and I'm sorry I'm making up numbers right now, but the homeless person gets like $35,000 a year with all the services, that California provides. Because they had a homeless shelter, they had a food store, they had a clothing store, they had the Salvation Army right there in their little central area, which is east of downtown, where if you went and worked a minimum wage job, I think your take home was $37,000.
Yeah, so why work?
Absolutely. So I'm not going to say they had it good. That's a bad statement to have, but if you're going to be homeless, San Diego is the best place to do it. That's paradise.
Well, certainly, yeah. I always wondered when I see like these homeless people, like in the wintertime in New York City, you're like, well, you should be hiking south.
Oh, absolutely agree.
And my wife works in charity, so I know that game too. And these guys, like, I'll just give you a personal experience. You know how the guys want to wash your window and stuff like that? This guy's got on like this really nice Patagonia jacket that I want. And I'm like, how the hell and he got it. The charities now, everything has to be brand new, name brand. Yep. So you got these homeless people got nicer stuff than you do in them little tents.
Yeah. And they got brand new iPhone 16s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think California bought them iPhones, actually.
Did they really?
Yeah,
I believe it.
You guys aren't joking?
No, I'm not joking about that. I might be lying, but I heard a while ago they actually were buying them phones. They might have been old iPhones.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I'd have to double check myself.
Yeah, old, meaning like iPhone 14s.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't have a logical reason for the state of California. That's why I left and went to Nevada.
I have a low tolerance for the things that are done with our taxes because I'm going all the way back to since I was a child. I have never qualified for nothing.
Same here.
I ain't qualified for free. I remember the kids was getting free lunch in the school. I couldn't get free lunch. And I thought it was cool because they were getting it. So I literally didn't give my mom the sheet and filled it in with some phony numbers so I could get free lunch. So I finally got it. But you guys get my point. And like these different things where people be like, Trump wrote me a check or Biden wrote me a check. Ain't none of them, I never get it. I never get none of these things that y'all be arguing about. So I'm pissed. When is the middle class, and I mean the real middle class, gonna get something?
Well, man, that's the problem. And we
all
talk
I
about
do is
this.
Support everybody. That's how I feel.
You pay for everything.
The downfall of America right now is that the middle class is disappearing.
I am kind of pissed right now.
Yeah, Phil wants this. Hey, I want a free. I didn't even eat lunch. No, but here's the problem, though, Phil. The downfall of the United States right now is that the middle class is disappearing, and what you're going to end up with is that the super wealthy are getting wealthier. The larger percentage of the assets and the money in the United States is going into fewer and fewer hands, and you've got a larger class of really poor people at the bottom. And that's indicative of, I hate to say it this way, but that's the definition of a third world country. You know, if you go to any developing nations in Africa, Central America, South America, you've got a very ultra wealthy upper class, and you've got many poor people. And that's where we're gravitating towards. And that's been going on in the United States probably for 20 years or so. But we were talking about this the other night. How do you change that? How do you turn that around? It's like trying to turn the Titanic, you know, after you see the iceberg. It's not going to happen.
We shouldn't have all of these qualifications and stuff. I believe there should be some form of welfare, but it should be very minimal, and the requirements should not include anything that has to do with age, sex, or race.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be something to get you over the hump and back.
But that's not the way it is now. It's set up so it's a permanent solution for people. And you can manipulate the system. And the other problem is, even people that aren't manipulating the system, they're given no incentive, and there's no give and take, right? It's a one-way street. Like we could give you food program, and you can come work for us, 10 hours a week helping whatever. No, none of that. None of that. We get nothing out of it.
Bro, I already stated my case. I have gotten nothing from this country as far as, what I put in taxes and what I get back. I have gotten nothing in my entire life. Nothing.
The government's gone to the other model, which is make more prisons, make more prisoners, and this is a business you can run, and this is how we get stuff made.
Well, it's a documented fact that we have far more people in prison with far less population than any other country in the world.
That's right.
So you can't tell me we're not in the business of locking people up.
We're totally in that business.
I'll take it a step further. We're just talking about the lockup portion, but most of us have a fear of doing something, not wrong, but doing something that puts us in front of a courtroom and fining us or penalizing us. We're always in fear of our government at some level.
I completely, I agree with that. Even the cops, because it's going to be a financial burden on yourself, regardless if you're innocent. If you go to court, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s just for a speeding ticket to get out of. So.
And if you happen to work for somebody, boy, it's a horrible feeling to take a day off for a court date.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you didn't do nothing.
So we haven't really, I don't know that we solved any problems here as usual on this thing, but we've,
I came on here to bitch today.
Yeah, me too. It's been a rough week. Spanish class has been challenging.
Oh yeah.
I figured Bert was the perfect guy to bring on here because he could, we sometimes have bitch sessions here. Tonight we're going out. We're excited. Tonight we're going out for going to listen to some live music, and we're going to go get wood oven fired pizza.
Oh, I can't wait.
Can't wait, right?
Can't wait. This is the one thing I like to plug. Everyone dreams about being the president of the United States one day, or running for it, and I do the same. But the one thing I've always wanted, for the last 20 years of my life, is have one initiative. It's basically 18 and out. Any politician that's been in there for 18 years is automatically gone. So
really,
yeah, that's been my running platform in my brain for 20 years. So I don't know where it came from, but 18.
I was gonna say, how did you pick 18 years?
Yeah,
three terms in the Senate. 666, because they're gonna have a lame duck session at the last one, so they can actually somewhat get stuff done. But like you said, all these people know each other. They're all in the same boat. They just take the 5 topics that we all kind of aggravate over and to spin up the population. But in the backroom deals, they're all getting the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think we mentioned this on the podcast before, but down here in Mexico, I like the Mexican system better than the U.S. one. They have term limits on everything.
Yes.
So Claudia Sheinbaum just got elected as president. It's a 6-year term. You cannot even run again. So it's a one and done system here. They don't have a vice president. So you don't have to, you're not dealing with that selectivity thing where she's picking somebody else that wasn't really elected and whatnot. And it's the same for the senators and for their, their congressional people. It's a term limit on everybody. So,
but as we said in this podcast, they don't pass rules against themselves.
No,
so.
No. I mean, like they have different issues and challenges down here, but you've got the same problem as the states do. They're protecting themselves, and yeah, there's a lot of people on the take here for sure.
I like Bert's idea in principle, but if we play it out, these are the lowest of low people. They will adapt, and I think it may even cause a worse problem. If I know I got a finite amount of time, this is a career. So I'm basically, I have an 18-year career.
I got to make money faster.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think you'll have even more people with the idea, let me get what I need to get in the first 8 and be out.
I mean, I can't argue with it. It's a sad fact.
So I agree in principle, but it's just it's some other little things that need to be.
I think we just need better voters. More
gosh,
we fucked them.
Oh, we're in big trouble.
I'm sorry. I know you got.
Bert, you just screwed us.
Better
voters.
I'm sorry, Bert. See, he's in the military. Look like he an upstanding person. Probably can quote the Declaration of Independence, a few amendments and stuff like that. Bro, you need to just have a conversation with somebody you think is smart and slip in a question about history or the Constitution or something and find out how ignorant most people are.
Unfortunately, you're not the first one to tell me I should do that. So, but
Phil, I was just telling Bert before we went on the podcast today that I generally don't follow politics and, some of these goings on as closely as we have over the last 6 months because we've been doing this podcast. And I am actually shocked. I knew that the media is biased. We all talk about that. It was obvious. I didn't know how biased it actually is.
I did.
And it is mind stunning, like how biased stuff is. And even like, yesterday when the whole Biden pardoning Hunter Biden come out, my first 3 things I do is I go to Fox News, I go to CNN, I go to BBC, and I go to MSNBC. It was like 4 different stories. Like, I mean,
Mike, the scary thing for me is I get usually, if I get accurate information, I get it from Al Jazeera News.
Al Jazeera, yeah. I look at that sometimes.
And that's supposed to be like the Taliban.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Funded by bad people, more than likely.
But I got some bad news for you, Mike. Unless you accept this concept, you will every 2 or 3, 5, 10 years be telling me about how you are disappointed in the media and you just discovered something about the media. There is no point in world history where there was a news organization that was not part of the propaganda for that government. Period.
And you definitely see that, particularly in many of the
that's
travels.
That's what it was designed for.
Yeah. I mean, I tell stories back in the day when I was in Africa the first time. We were listening to BBC and Voice of America on shortwave, and they were propaganda. It's like dropping flyers over Iraq, telling people that we're going to give them something or they should vote this way or whatever. It's the same concept. And we would listen to get our news. Because we didn't have cell phones, we would listen to Voice of America in special English, they call it, because they talk really slow so people that weren't native speakers could understand. And today is, and they talk really slow. But those it was all propaganda, and you could tell even then. Back then, I was like, oh yeah,
all propaganda. Yeah, not your fight, brother, man.
Yeah. Not my fight.
It's all propaganda. If someone were to ask me to give what I feel is an excellent example of what the word cinematics mean, semantics mean, I would say just study politics. It's all semantics to make you feel like, oh, I really have a say. My vote really counts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's team buy-in. Wow. I might have to have a beer tonight.
So are you guys ready to start the podcast?
Let's do it.
Bert, we just talked and talked and talked. I'm sorry. You're going to have to come back on again so we can learn more about Bert.
We're going to have him back on because Bert and I are working on a feature comedy joint YouTube venture that we're going to film down here and we're going to put out. And then once we do that, we're going to put it out and then we're going to talk about it. It's going to be funny.
Okay. I'll ask you about that offline, but you're going to have to reveal that to me.
Yeah.
Anything? Go ahead.
I just like to say it was an absolute pleasure. I've been listening to you guys for the last year, and it's great to get to know you. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, friend of Mike's, friend of mine. Period.
Thank you.
Mike, you got anything you want to say?
As always, I hope you guys listen to this whole thing and we didn't offend anybody. Or actually, I hope we offended everybody. And we'll see you next week to offend everybody again.
So with that, if you don't like the truth, I hope you were very offended. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.